Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to 2Baggers podcast. Joined here by my co-host, my brother Jaxon Ortiz. Jackson, tell everyone what's up.
What's up?
So, to get started today, we wanted to talk about a topic that's kind of hits home with me specifically because my favorite player of all time being involved in this. But we're going to talk about this year's Hall of Fame class, the class of 2020. Both Derek Jeter and Larry Walker were both selected this year. Jackson, what are your initial thoughts on this?
I don't know much about Larry Walker. I didn't really watch the Rockies that much growing up. We went to a few games, but Derek Jeter, I'm just happy that he got into it.
So, what do you feel about him not being unanimous? He was one voter didn't vote him unanimous. What do you feel about that?
I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted. Part of me says he deserved it, but at the same time, Ken Griffey didn't get it. So,
yeah, from a baseball fan, just not being biased or anything, just somebody who would look at the situation and say, honestly, my personal beliefs, I thought he should have been unanimous. But when you look at the stats don't lie. Derek Jeter was just your average shortstop when it came to the defensive side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's got probably some of the lowest defensive metrics out of any shortstop in Major League Baseball history, which stinks because, we grew up all trying to mimic Jeter's jump throw. It was one of the most iconic things in baseball, especially for our generation growing up. And for him not to go unanimous, I could see why, but at the same time, if you're one vote shy and you didn't get it because of one voter, it just disgusts me. He was a 5-time World Series champion, I think he won at least one batting title, maybe more. He was a several-time All-Star. I don't know, there was just something about it. If you're not going to vote him unanimous, then it shouldn't have been 99.7% or something like that. It should have been something shorter. And You had the only one voter didn't vote him in. I don't know. I don't agree with it. But at the same time, I could see why somebody wouldn't have voted for him just because of defensive metrics alone. And, a lot of people say, well, he probably wouldn't have been anything more than just your average shortstop if he'd have been playing in somewhere like Seattle or playing somewhere like the Chicago White Sox. Would he have had the same exposure, and would he have been looked at as one of the better shortstops in baseball if he were playing for teams that weren't good? What are your thoughts?
I don't think he would have been the same player because you've read his, what was it? It wasn't an autobiography, was it? Or was it?
It was it was written by somebody, but it was basically from the words of Jeter. But yeah.
But he grew up, the Yankees were his favorite team, and I think that was just one of the reasons why he wanted to do so well, is because he was on there. Rather than if he would have been on a different team, I don't think it would have been the same thing. He probably would have been more bummed out that he didn't get on the Yankees.
Yeah. Well, what about Larry Walker? Larry Walker put up stats everywhere he went and took him to his very last year on the ballot for him to finally make it.
I really don't know much about Larry Walker because, again, that was really before my time for what I remember, because I don't remember that far back for baseball, so I couldn't really say much. But from the sound of it sounded like he did pretty well. So
he was a beast, to say the least. I remember watching him when he was with the Rockies, and he should have been a Hall of Famer 4 or 5 years ago. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. I think the Coors effect, him playing in Denver all those years, I think a lot of people think his numbers were inflated because of it. But if you go back and look at the stats, his home and away splits aren't much different. And in fact, some seasons, it looks like he appeared to have better power numbers away from home in a lot of cases. So I don't know. There's just a lot of things that probably should have happened that didn't happen, but I'm just glad he finally got in. So, But now going back to the Hall of Fame thing, Bonds and Clemens got their 2 highest years ever on the ballot, and they still haven't made it. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't agree with it, honestly, with that they haven't gotten in, because although they did, they were both. Was Bonds found guilty of that? I don't remember.
No, neither one of them were found guilty of taking steroids.
Even if they did take steroids, it does not put in play about putting the ball in play, hitting the ball, or spotting up well as a pitcher. It doesn't have any effect on that. It just has effect on speed, velocity, and stuff like that. But it doesn't affect like how hard or like where you place the pitch and everything. It doesn't do anything like that. Yeah. So I really think it's kind of BS because they kind of did earn that. They played phenomenal.
Well, my thing is when has Major League Baseball ever really cared about character? I know like taking steroids, you know, kind of puts a blemish on their record, but since when has the MLB ever really cared about it? I mean, for instance, you've got people like Ty Cobb, who's in the Hall of Fame, who was a racist, and he had an attempted murder charge on an African-American man in a parking lot just because he was black. And not only that, but then you've got Cap Anson, who was one of the first people inducted to the Hall of Fame, who refused to play if the other team had colored people on their lineup or in their lineups. And then not only the racism part of it, but then you've got somebody like Paul Wainer, who was alleged to be drinking during the games, and his manager even said, you know, he's a really good player. He was once so good that he can slide into second base because he wouldn't ruin the bottle that was in his left hip. And so, like, I don't understand why these people are so big on keeping character when you've got people like this. Like, even Grover Cleveland Alexander, who was one of the top pitchers back when baseball was first starting to get big, he was said to have pitched better while he was drunk. And then you've got Orlando Cepeda and Paul Molitor and Rogers Hornsby, who were all either alleged to or were found guilty of soliciting and smuggling drugs across the border. And also Wade Boggs, he cheated on his wife multiple times and admitted to people that he was addicted to sex. Like, there's just the defamation of character that just doesn't, I don't think it fits in this situation. And I think Pete Rose should end up in the Hall of Fame. I think Barry Bonds should end up in the Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire, Roger Clemens. These guys were all talented before they took the steroids. And if the steroids helped them, it only made the game more fun to watch, especially in that era when people felt like baseball was dying. You remember the home run race between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa? But that was a big deal because no one had seen that many home runs hit in one season in a very long time. So I don't know. I think the MLB needs to, I think the riders especially need to look at themselves and hold themselves accountable for keeping them out this so long, because there's this onslaught of people who had bad character that are in the Hall of Fame. I think
to even go back, like with the Astros, what just happened now, that's a pretty big thing on character, and they were pretty lenient on the punishment, honestly.
Not only is that a big thing on character, but you know, the Black Sox, the Black Sox scandal, what happened in 1919, where they threw the World Series against the Cincinnati Reds. Like, what's the difference? I mean, they threw the World Series, but they didn't cheat to win it. And all those guys got banned from Major League Baseball, and none of them are in the Hall of Fame. It's crazy. Like, they got banned for things like that. Like, why wouldn't the Astros? This thing is just as big, if not bigger, than the 1919 scandal.
Right, and a lot of people are saying that it's going to blow over, but we still remember Pete Rose, Black Sox. We remember all of that.
Yeah, it's not going away, and I don't understand why people think this is going away anytime soon, because it's not. I, for one, am not going to let it go away. Like, I don't think it should have ever happened. I think these guys should have all been suspended, and I think, honestly, like, we'll get into it a little bit later. I think it's kind of funny that, you know, some things have been happening in spring training, but, like, honestly, I just don't believe that these guys should have gotten off as much as they did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. But moving on to our second topic, you know, our favorite topic usually on this show, talking about the New York Yankees. Well, looks like they're going to be struggling a little bit, losing their second best pitcher this season. Mm-hmm. Did you do any research on it?
No, but I did. If I remember right, they said that they were going to have Luis Severino. Like last season, he was saying that he was having problems with the arm, and they were like, "We're just going to let him rest over break, like over the summer, or just let him like relax, and so he can see if it'll heal on its own." And it didn't, and now he has to get surgery, which I find that dumb. They should have just done it right away.
I agree. Well, so the doctors, he had taken some MRIs, and he had taken some some CT scans, and originally those scans came back negative for injury, and so they were thinking it was probably just forearm tightness. But like when you think about it, like forearm tightness is like the number one symptom or signs and symptom of a torn UCL when you have forearm tightness. And so like that whole thing, the Yankees medical staff just didn't live up to the expectations, especially as famous as this ball club is, for them not to take this so seriously. It amazes me, honestly, that they didn't see this. But so he went and got an MRI arthrogram, which is basically just a MRI, but with dye, so that way they're able to see like the different parts of his elbow. And they found some loose bodies in his elbow, which is basically showing that he partially tore his UCL. And so he's having surgery tomorrow, which is a pretty big deal. Or I guess Thursday. Whenever this gets posted, you'll know. But Luis Severino's having surgery on Thursday, February 27th, whenever that comes out. But he's out for the season and probably out until at least June next year, is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think they need to sign another arm, or do you think that they're fine with what they've got now?
I feel like it'd probably be safe to sign another one, because last season, if you don't remember, it's like we were kind of off and on with our starting pitchers. It was either they started out really well or it was just awful. And I feel like without Severino, it's going to be the same thing. So I feel like they might just need another one.
Brian Cashman says they're not going to pursue a trade or free agent at the moment, like right away.
Well,
when you look at it, I don't know if they really need to at the moment. I mean, if they wouldn't have gotten Garrett Cole in the offseason, then I would be like, okay, I'm freaking out. They really need to go get somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys won 103 games last year with Severino out for almost the entire season.
That is true.
They had like Domingo Germán, who, isn't anything beyond average, honestly. But it's not like he didn't get the job done. He got hit around a little bit last year, but I mean he pitched well enough in games that he needed to, where he won and put them in positions to win. And you still have Tanaka and Happ, who I'm expecting Happ to come back and have a better season than he did last year.
I hope so.
There were a couple moments last year where J.A. Happ looked like a minor leaguer, and he probably should have been sent back down. But then in the middle of the season, he went on a little stretch where he went 6-1, kept his ERA really low. He looked really good, and then so he started off bad, then got good, and then ended the season pretty bad on a bad note. So I don't know. I'm hoping he can, pull it together for a full season this year. So update on Paxton, though. James Paxton looks like he might be already beginning to start throwing again. Maybe not pitching at the moment, but playing catch and, strengthening out his back. He just had back surgery. So, they're expecting him to come back in maybe even May. And what they were originally thinking, he wouldn't be back until at least the All-Star break. So that's a whole extra month and a half of having him back if he comes back. But my thing is, I hope he just doesn't rush it, you know what I mean? Like, I hope he doesn't do something where he's going to hurt his chances of helping this team and hurt himself further, and he's out for the whole season. Like, I hope they take their time and manage this injury much better than they did with the Severino thing. Right. So, and then Yerman comes back after the 63-game suspension for his domestic violence thing. So, I mean, I agree with the suspension. He should have gotten the suspension. But I'm hoping that we can all get past it, because everybody, makes mistakes. This is one of those mistakes where I don't think you should ever forgive somebody for doing it, and it's wrong, and you should never lay your hand on a woman. But we as a society need to forgive people, because we all make mistakes, whether they're as small as, lying to a friend, or as big as, committing some major crimes that hurt people. We should just forgive people and move on, and, let him redeem himself, kind of like they did with Aroldis Chapman and other players who have gone through the same thing.
Yeah, it's like all of us have one bad day.
Yeah.
Everyone has one.
And then, so they've got a couple people, if they don't go for a trade or they don't go for free agent signings right away, they've got some arms that could really fill those slots and can actually be pretty big pieces to this team. Obviously, Jordan Montgomery is the first one that comes to mind. In 2017, he looked really good. He was a young lefty, doesn't throw super hard, but he locates really well, makes the opposing team put the ball in play. He makes big pitches when he needs to, and his first spring training outing, I thought he looked really good. So I'm really excited to see Jordan Montgomery come back. Gumby, that'll be big for them. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty good for them too. I don't know. I haven't really been paying him a whole lot of attention. I've been busy.
Yeah. Well, then you've got Luis Sessa and Loizaga from last year, who I don't know if they're going to be able to fill those spots. Sessa threw well out of the bullpen, and I think that's where he should stay. But Loizaga, he was off and on. He struggled, and then he'd look decent, and then he'd struggle, and then he'd throw really well, and then he'd struggle. So he was up and down for me last year, and I just don't think that he's quite ready to be consistent at the major league level. I just don't think his preparation's quite there yet. Who knows, maybe this year it's his year and he surprises everybody, but I just don't think he's quite ready. I'm kind of excited to see if they bring this Garcia kid up. I've been hearing a lot of the good things about him. Mm-hmm. Saw a lot of film on him when he was in AAA. Saw a lot of film on him at the All-Star game last year for the minor leagues, when the league that he was playing in. He looks good. Doesn't throw hard. He's a 92 to 94 fastball kind of guy, but he locates well. He's got a funky delivery, and he's got a lot of movement on his pitches. So that's the one. I think Garcia is going to be the piece, the fifth starter that might bring this team, peace until Paxton and them get back. And then I don't know, he might contend for a bullpen spot and move one of these guys like Loizaga or Sessa, move him down, something like that. But I see him maybe not early in the season, but maybe making an impact towards the first week of May, maybe even June, depending on when Paxton comes back. I think he makes a big difference on this team. And then you've got Chad Green. Last year he opened games, and the Yankees, I think, only lost one game where he was an opener for the entire season. And so that's an option that you have too, is you can use that bullpen guy to throw your first and second innings, and then use somebody else and utilize your bullpen, especially with as good a bullpen as they have. They can utilize it and everything. So I think that's something they should consider too.
Mm-hmm. And going back to Garcia, I can't remember who said it. I can't remember the exact quote, but if I remember right, they said that it doesn't matter about speed. It just matters about hitting the zone, because if you hit the zone, they have to do something.
Well, he reminds me of Greg Maddux in that.
That's what it was.
Respective, where he can locate well. I don't know. I don't think he's anywhere near the pitcher Maddux was yet, but I mean, he locates well. He doesn't throw hard. He's got good off speed. Like he's the kind of kid that you're looking at to being another Greg Maddux, where he's going to get people to roll over and put balls in play, hit weak fly balls, weak ground balls, kind of thing. So, and then Miguel Andujar homered in his first game back from his surgery. Ripped the home run opposite field to right field, and I mean, he absolutely smacked that ball. Mm-hmm. So he played the outfield a little bit today. I was watching the spring training game, and he played a little outfield today. He didn't look too bad. I mean, I don't know. The game ended early because of a rain delay, but I don't think that Miguel Andujar is going to be a bad addition to that outfield. They might have to honestly consider keeping him in the lineup just because of how good his bat is. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know. But moving on to our... No, go ahead.
I'd keep him in the lineup no matter what, because he did good last year.
Well, his rookie season was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Led the league in doubles as a rookie. So, and I mean, he hit, I think 26 home runs or something like that. So he's got the pop. Mm-hmm. And it looks like he's improved defensively. I honestly just don't think you can keep him out of the lineup.
Oh.
All right, so moving on to our third topic, going back to the big whole debacle this year with the Astros. Even Derek Jeter had something to say. Did you see what he saw, or did you see what he said?
I did not.
So he chimed in and said that this whole situation is, quote, a black eye to the game of baseball. He also was quoted to say, when you talk about people trying to get an edge in baseball, I don't think that's anything new, because people have been trying to do that for years. But obviously the Astros took it too far. It's sort of like the PED area, that was something everybody continued to talk about, and you just never forget it. Hopefully one day it'll pass, but, what do you think?
I think Jeter's right. It's I just find it really dumb, like why it's how this whole thing just happened.
Yeah.
Is that I don't even it's major. It's just like I don't know. It's like the problem child of baseball. It's just there. Like you can't just ignore it, even though that's what they want to do.
Yeah. No, I agree. And like we said earlier, talking about like people with the defamation of character thing, the Black Sox scandal we talked about, we still talk about it today. It's 100. It was 100 years ago this past season where it happened, where they threw the World Series against the Cincinnati Reds. So it was 100 years ago, and people still talk about it today. Like it's still a big deal, and it's not something that people just forget about. You don't forget about people who cheat. Like, you don't forget about George Brett's pine tar incident where he had too much pine tar. It was too high on his bat, and he hit a home run against the Yankees. People don't forget things like that. Like, cheating isn't something that you just kind of forget about, especially something that with this magnitude. Like, it changed the whole game of baseball. Like, it changed the outcome in a lot of ways. Yeah.
It ruined people's careers, too.
Yeah. And so, moving on, so Mike Fiers, the guy who started this whole thing, who was the whistleblower behind it all, he's been getting a lot of backlash from some pretty famous baseball players. Specifically, what makes me mad about it, though, is it's coming from two Red Sox players who right now are under investigation for, kind of the same thing, where their manager was a part of the 2017 Houston Astros thing. And so these players I'll just read exactly the quote. So David Ortiz calls out Mike Fiers and says, quote, after you make your money, after you get your ring, you decide to talk about it, you look like a snitch. Why you got to talk about it after? That's my problem. Why nobody say anything while it was going on? And then he refers to the other players who keep talking, like Cody Bellinger and Mike Trout, who keep talking about how they should have got punished more. He's like, quote, I see players trying to talk about what Rob Manfred needs to do. He doesn't tell you how to hit or how to pitch, so let him do his job. He's going to do what is best for this game. He's not the type of guy who's going to accept you screwing things up in the game and tell you where to go. People need to chillax. People need to let him do his job. So he came out and said that. And not only him, but Pedro Martinez, a Hall of Famer, comes out and said, if he was to do it when he was playing for the Houston Astros at the time, I would say Mike Fiers has guts. But to go and do it after you leave the Houston Astros because they don't have you anymore, that doesn't show me anything. You're just a bad teammate. Whatever happens in the clubhouse stays in the clubhouse, and Fiers broke the rules. I agree with cleaning up the game. I agree that the fact that the commissioner is taking a hard hand on this, but at the same time, players should not be the one dropping the whistleblower. If you have integrity, you find ways to tell everybody in the clubhouse, hey, we might get in trouble for this. I don't want to be a part of this. You call your GM, you tell him, or you call anybody you can, or MLB or someone and say, I don't want to be a part of this. Or you tell them, get me out of here, I don't want to be a part of this. Then you show me something. But if you leave Houston, and most likely you didn't agree with Houston when you left, and then you go and drop the entire team under the bus, I don't trust you. And I won't trust you because you didn't follow that rule. So they're mad at somebody for whistleblowing this whole thing and bringing to light the whole cheating scandal. And they're the team, or the organization that they played for right now is under investigation for kind of similar things. Mark Teixeira kind of fired back at him, though. He said, this isn't good, fellas. This is the real world. In the real world, you want bad things brought to light. You don't want people cheating. I agree 100% with Mark Teixeira.
Right.
If my team's out there cheating, and trying to get a leg on somebody the way that the Astros were doing it, I sure as heck wouldn't want that to get out. Or I would want that to get out, but I wouldn't want them to keep doing it so they can keep cheating. You know what I mean?
You also got to see it from his perspective, because in his perspective, he could have been moved down. If he would have said it on that team, he gets in trouble. He could probably lose his job, like get sent back down, and that's a big decrease in pay, because most people know that they don't get paid a whole lot.
Oh yeah.
When you're in the minors, so that would have been a big decrease in his pay. That's like an attack on his family and everything, and you can't just risk that while doing. They can't stick your neck out. Like, yeah, you would be doing the right thing, but you also got to see about it for your whole life. That's why I felt like it's fine that he did it when he left, because he actually was protected.
I agree, and I think he did the right thing, bringing this whole situation to light and letting everybody know exactly what was going on. And I think it's unfair for both Pedro Martinez and David Ortiz to come out and say things like that. Like David Ortiz, I don't know why he's even commenting on this. Like, he wants to talk about cheating and stuff like that. Like, talk about yourself with the whole steroids thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you honestly, he's not in the position to make comments about whether or not someone should have said something.
Right.
Just because he's got a past of cheating himself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I see it. I just don't think either one of these two guys should have said really anything. It should have been said a long time ago. This should have came out 2 years ago when it happened. But I'm just glad it finally came out after the whole thing. I'm finally glad someone stepped up and said something, because it's a really big deal.
Mm-hmm. It's like if Alex Rodriguez said anything, said something around the same lines that David Ortiz said, people would be throwing a fit over that, because it's the A-Rod. They're like, oh, he cheated. Yeah, well, yeah, he did cheat.
Yeah, but moving on to our next topic, kind of getting away from the Astros thing. Kind of just don't really want to talk about it much. At least the cheating scandal part of it, but looking at it, they've been hit 7 times in 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've been watching spring training, if you've seen the highlights, but I mean, some of these pitches definitely don't look intentional, but I think at the same time, like, if they're throwing inside to these hitters, knowing darn well that one of them might get away and hit somebody. They're not afraid to go inside to these guys right now. So what are they doing it on purpose, or do you think it's just the luck of the draw that they're getting hit?
I'm thinking they're going for a strikeout, but at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of hard feelings about that.
Oh, I agree. I thought it was just funny that Jose Altuve was booed so bad yesterday. I love it. I used to be probably one of the biggest Jose Altuve fans. For him being as small as he is, and for him to do the things with the bat that he was doing, was remarkable. And honestly, I was definitely upset that Jose Altuve took the MVP over Judge in 2017. But looking at it, like, he didn't have that bad of a season. In fact, he had one of his better seasons in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But now looking at it, he had to cheat to get there. Like, it takes all the respect that you had for the player. Like, I had all the respect in the world for Alex Bregman. You remember I got to play at a Team USA camp with him in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
That one year when I was like 13 and he was 16. Like, we were on the same camp team. And, Mom posted about it at the time, about how great he was and how he was definitely going to be a Major League Baseball player someday. Mm-hmm. That came true. But at the same time, like, now you look at it, like, I lost all respect for him. I was probably the biggest Alex Bregman fan out of anybody that I know. Maybe a couple other kids that I've played ball with along the years, but Alex Bregman was probably in my top 3 for favorite players right now. That I don't feel the same way anymore. I definitely don't.
Right. I don't know. It's kind of like how a lot of people viewed A-Rod after, like, he took roids. It's just like, I don't know. It makes you look at him and be like, how could you do that?
And the thing that makes me mad about A-Rod is he didn't have to do it.
Right.
He was already the best shortstop in baseball at the time. He was already the best baseball player in baseball at the time. He's probably the greatest prospect ever when you look at it. Most talented prospect that we've ever seen. And for him to cheat, just that hurt. It hurt because you were such a big fan, and that's exactly how this Astros thing is for me. Is there were some players on that team that I really liked, and it hurts. It really hurt as a fan to see that happen.
I think it just hurts as a baseball fan to see any of that happen.
Yeah. Like, I think steroids are bad and everything, but it's nowhere near as big a magnitude as this is right now.
Right, because they don't affect how, truly how the game goes.
Yeah. It doesn't dictate the outcome of the game as much as what the Astros did.
Mm-hmm.
So, but moving on from that, I'm kind of done talking about that tonight. Tim Tebow, hit a home run, his first spring training home run with the big league club. His first extra base hit in a big league uniform. And it wasn't like it just barely got over the field. I mean, he crushed that ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looked good. Opposite field, too. I mean, the swing looked really good. And it was off of a veteran who's pitched a lot of innings in Major League Baseball in recent years, Alex Wilson. He's not a scrub by any means. And he put a good swing on it, and he crushed the ball. You think he'll ever make it to the show?
If he keeps doing what he did, like with the home run and everything, if he keeps producing like that, like his first season, everyone was all hyped about him being playing baseball, but then he didn't do super hot. But if he starts doing very well, then I see no reason why not.
I think he does, but I don't think it's for the right reasons.
You think it's just because he was famous before for football?
Yeah, I think it's just because he's going to bring people to the games. He's going to put people in the seats. He's a great guy. He's a great Christian man, but he's nothing more than just your average baseball player. And I think he's below average in most cases.
Well,
he's got a lot of power, a lot of raw power. I mean, he's a big guy. He should be hitting balls that far.
Oh yeah, he played the NFL.
But last year at the AAA level, that's one step away from Major League Baseball, and he hit 170. So I just don't think he's got it. I think it's the only reason why the Mets will bring him up either this year or here in a couple years will just be because it's going to sell tickets. People want to see this happen, not because he's good at baseball, but just because of the great guy Tebow is. And I hope he makes it, because I've been one of his supporters, just hoping that he makes it, because I've always been a huge Tim Tebow fan as a person, not as a football player, but as a person. I've always been a huge Tim Tebow fan, and I'm praying that he gets there, and maybe one day we'll see him in a big league uniform, but I don't think it's going to be for the right reasons, and I think they're going to kind of exploit him and take advantage of his character.
Funny thing is, I actually read that he's going to be playing for the Philippines in the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, you were saying that he was born in the Philippines, which is kind of crazy.
I didn't know that
until
I saw it earlier today. And then he guess he's doing it, so props to him.
All right, everybody. Well, we're going to get to our final topic on today's podcast, but this is probably our favorite thing that we're going to be doing on this podcast.
Oh, you're going to hate me for mine.
Every week we're going to be doing some kind of cool, not project, but going to be putting together some pretty cool things. And this week we decided to put together our dream team of our favorite players. Not necessarily favorite players, but the team that we think would be the best and would produce the best on the field. So we're going to be joined today by a good friend of mine, Brandon Wilson. So I'm going to go ahead and add him to the call right now. Hopefully he answers here within the next couple seconds, and we can get started with this.
By the way, I just did mine on my favorite players.
Yeah, I did mine, not my favorite players, but I did mine on who I thought was the most talented at the position.
Well, I also did it on who I knew. I looked into it about who was the best, and then I was like, I don't know these people.
Yeah. What's up, Brandon?
What's up, bro?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, give me a sec.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Right, it done it one time. They scammed me out of $4.
Yeah, that's Skype for you.
Slightly disgusting.
All right, Jackson, while we're waiting for him to get his video up, do you want to go ahead and get started introducing your team?
Make it. All right, you're going to hate it, Junior. I already know you're going to hate it.
All right, let's hear it.
Oh, God, I got to pull it up. Give me a sec. There it is. Okay. So, if it'll open, that would be fantastic. Okay. So, for my starting rotation, I put Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens, Kershaw, Sale, and Halladay.
It's a good starting five.
Because I really just went with who I knew, and I knew Chris. I like Chris Sale. Chris Sale pitches well. Kershaw pitches really well. Clemens, knew him. Nolan Ryan, I just know pitches really freaking well. And Halladay, because it's Roy.
Oh yeah, he's a Colorado boy too, which is kind of cool. Went to Arvada West, so that's pretty cool. What about your relievers?
I couldn't remember if Jabo was a relief.
Yeah.
So I put him in there. Goose Gossage, Aroldis Chapman, Trevor Hoffman, Billy Wagner, Andrew Miller, and to put Mariano Rivera, because you got to have Mariano in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that.
For catcher, I put Yogi.
Yogi.
First base, Lou Gehrig.
Saw a lot of old Yankees.
Pretty much. Actually, yeah. That's actually a lot of this team. Second baseman, I put give me a Cano in his prime, and I would have kept it there.
Yeah.
Third base, A-Rod. Let's see. Shortstop, Jeter. This is pretty much Yankees at this point.
Yeah.
Left fielder, I put Ken Griffey Jr. because outfield in general. Center field, Mike Trout. Right field, I put Roberto Clemente.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty good. He's definitely a Hall of Famer for sure. He had a cannon. One of the best arms I've ever. I've seen videos of it. Yeah. What about your bench guys?
Well, my DH, I put Bond. It's because it's Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
For bench, I put Joe DiMaggio, Pedroia, Jackie Robinson, and Babe Ruth.
You don't have Babe Ruth starting?
I mean, I thought about it, but then I was like, but Griffey, Trout, I didn't know who to replace there.
Yeah.
But I was like, he needs to be on that team.
All right, well, so that concludes your team. So, Brandon, why don't you go ahead and give us your team?
All right. Yeah, I know my starting lineup. I know my rotation, a couple guys. I sent you the roster, but it's on my phone, and I'm currently using it. So, no, I know my starting catcher is Buster Posey.
Okay.
When you look at it, he won Gold Gloves. He won an MVP at a young age, 3 World Series rings in 5 years. I think if he didn't get hurt on that, he changed the game, literally changed the game because he got hurt.
Yeah.
Can't run into catchers, which is, I don't like the rule, but anyway. He changed the game, and he's one of the best offensive catchers. For a short period of time, obviously. He hasn't had, the 20-year career that, a trash Mike Piazza would have. I don't know. Pretty much, and I've watched him in person. I think he's hit 5 home runs in the 3 games I've gone to watch the Rockies play the Giants. So he's pretty good.
Yeah.
First base, I went with Albert Pujols, the machine. I don't think you can go wrong there. Gold Gloves, MVPs, World Series. What more could you want? Obviously, he fell off when he went to LA, but not really the best hitter's haven. And a new league and old age all into one. It's second base, one with Roberto Alomar, Gold Glove. He's more my leadoff type guy, a guy to set the order up. Speed, fielding, contact, sneaky pop, good all around player. I think he's a 12-time All-Star, 12-time Gold Glover. He's like Omar Vizquel, but can hit. Let's see, third base, I put the greatest of all time, Nolan Machado.
Oh, no.
He's on pace to be Mike Schmidt 2.0. Just he plays for the Rockies, so how could you not love the guy? 7 years, 7 Gold Gloves, 3 Platinum Gloves, 5-time All-Star. Probably could have had a chance at an MVP already, but he plays in Colorado, so he's gonna have to put up God-tiered numbers to win an MVP, regardless. So there's that. Shortstop. Oh man, who was my shortstop? This is embarrassing now.
I think you had A-Rod.
Yeah, I had A-Rod at short. That's why it confused me. So yeah, A-Rod at short. He won a Gold Glove at short. 2 of them with the Rangers. Obviously, the best hitting shortstop of all time. Then he switched to third base and became one of the greatest hitting third basemen of all time. But I loved A-Rod. Obviously, I think he'd be the home run king if he didn't get suspended for over 2 seasons worth of games. He's one of my favorite players of all time. I like A-Rod. And then I got the actual greatest of all time in left field, Barry Bonds. The greatest hitter to ever live, Barry Bonds. It's not. I would say it's close with Babe Ruth, but I don't think it's really that close because modern era pitching is a lot better than what it was back in the day. And then I got Mike Trout in center, and I believe Ken Griffey. No, I got Willie Mays in right. So outfield's pretty solid, I would say, between Bonds, Trout, and Mays. And then the bench features Babe Ruth. I think I had Lou Gehrig, Ted Williams, Mike Piazza's backup catcher, and then Ken Griffey Jr. So the bench is solid. Starting rotation, I know I had Kershaw as my number 1, and then I probably had Greg Maddux in there. Well, I wish I had the list in front of me because I know I sent it to you. Sent an email.
Yeah.
Greg Maddux, Clayton Kershaw, Bob Gibson, I believe, was on there. I mean, the guy had to have the mound lowered because he was so dominant. And then, so those are 3 starters I for sure remember were in there. Bullpen-wise, I remember that better for some reason. I had Mariano Rivera as the closer, Dennis Eckersley, Raleigh Fingers, Trevor Hoffman, 4 of the greatest of all time to ever be a relief pitcher. As well. I think I had Chapman in there just off of pure velocity. So you can't go wrong with that guy. So I think I had a pretty solid team. I don't know if it's stacked up against the all Yankees squad. It is what it is. But yeah, that's my squad.
All right, for my squad. So you guys named a lot of the same players that I have on my team. I think that's just something that comes with being a baseball fan is you pay attention to all the really good players and you always remember them. So they've kind of stuck with me. So for my number 1 starting pitcher, I've got Roger Clemens. 354 wins, a 3.12 ERA, 7 Cy Young Awards, 4,672 strikeouts, and 7 ERA titles. I just don't think there's another pitcher in baseball history that's really been as dominant as he was for the time span that he was, especially in that era with the steroid hitters. It just wasn't something that you saw all the time, and he was dominant. And so for my number 2, I've got Randy Johnson. He's a 6 foot, I think he's 6'10", 303 wins, 3.29 ERA, 5 Cy Youngs, 4,875 strikeouts, and he was inducted to the Hall of Fame. So you can't really go wrong with Randy Johnson, the big unit. My number 3 is Pedro Martinez, 219 wins, 2.93 ERA, 3 Cy Young Awards, 5 ERA titles, over 3,000 strikeouts, and he had a 1.74 ERA in 2000, which is unbelievable. 1.74 is pretty unbelievable, especially in the American League when you're throwing against those big guys. And he was also inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2015, so you can't go wrong there. For my number 4, neither one of you two mentioned this one, and I thought it was kind of surprising, but for number 4, I've got Sandy Koufax. He didn't have the most dominant record when you look at his wins, but he had a 2.76 career ERA, won 3 Cy Young Awards, he was a 5-time ERA champion, over 2,300 strikeouts, and he was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1972. So I don't think you can go wrong with Sandy Koufax. And then Nolan Ryan finishes off my starting pitching. He's the all-time strikeout leader with 5,714. He won 2 ERAs. His one downside is he didn't win any Cy Young awards while he was pitching, which I think was the one downside to his career, but he was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1999 as well. My relief pitching, a lot of you mentioned Billy Wagner's on mine. I think it's a disgrace that he wasn't chosen for the Hall of Fame yet with 422 saves, a 2.31 ERA, and over 1,100 strikeouts as a relief pitcher. Like, there's no reason why he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I've also got Trevor Hoffman, who has the second most saves all time, 2.87 ERA, over 1,100 strikeouts, also inducted to the Hall of Fame. I've got Aroldis Chapman. You can't go wrong with the 106-mile-an-hour fastball, especially in the prime of his career. He's a World Series champion. He's already on pace to break all the relief strikeout records. He's already got over 883. He's still got some left in the tank, so see him being a big asset to the Yankees this year. Then you got Raleigh Fingers. You can't go wrong. He's a relief pitcher that won a Cy Young Award and a World Series MVP. 341 saves, 2.9 ERA. Can't go wrong there. Then you've got Dennis Eckersley, 390 saves. He also won a Cy Young and an MVP award as a relief pitcher. 2,401 strikeouts. It's pretty remarkable. These guys were, Fingers and Eckersley weren't like closers that you have nowadays where they're only going to go 1 or 2 innings. Like, these guys were throwing 3 to 4 innings to close games out and still as dominant as they were. So it's a pretty big deal. And then I've got Josh Hader. He's young. He's a lefty, throws hard, already striking out over 350 people, 2.42 ERA. He's got all the tools that I think he's going to be one of the better closers in baseball history as well. And then to round out my relievers, I got Mariano Rivera. You can't go wrong with the all-time saves leader. More people have walked on the moon with 12 than those who have scored in the postseason while he was pitching at 11. The guy was phenomenal, and you can't say anything about it. And what makes it special is he had one really dominant pitch, and everybody knew it was coming, and they still couldn't hit it. And so you just can't leave him off. Now, for my lineup, a lot of these guys that I put on here were more power guys than they were contact, just because I'm a huge power numbers kind of guy. So my starting catcher is going to be Mike Piazza. He hit .308 with an on-base of .377, a slugging of .345. He had an OPS of .922 and an OPS plus of .142. He's probably the best hitting catcher of all time, and I don't know if there's anybody that comes maybe Buster Posey is probably a close second, but I can't really think of any other catchers right now that are up there. He's a 12-time All-Star, a 10-time Silver Slugger, and was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2016. So I think that's why Mike Piazza is definitely my catcher. At first base, I have the machine, Albert Pujols. Like he said, you can't go wrong with the 3-time MVP, 10-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove winner, 6-time Silver Slugger, and he's also got a batting title. So, I mean, there's nothing really you could say. Albert Pujols is probably one of the most dominant hitters of all time. And honestly, if he would have stayed healthy and would have stayed in St. Louis, I honestly think we could be considering him to be the home run king. I mean, he's only like 100 home runs off, but I think he's towards the end of his career. I just don't think he's going to make it. Then at second base, I also have Roberto Alomar Jr. He's also, a leadoff kind of guy for me. Plays hell of a defense, hell of a second base. He's a 4-time Silver Slugger, so I mean, he definitely hit well enough to put him on this list, but his fielding, there's not very many second basemen that are as good a fielder as he was. At third base, this one's going to make Brandon mad because I know we had an argument about it the other day. But I have Chipper Jones starting at third base for me. And I have Chipper Jones for one reason. It's because he's a switch hitter, and he's probably the greatest switch hitter of all time. He's got pop from both sides of the plate. He's got an MVP. He's a 2-time Silver Slugger award winner, 8-time All-Star. He's got a batting title, and he was also inducted into the Hall of Fame. His defense probably not the greatest. Actually, I know it's not the greatest by far, but I just don't think you can go wrong with having a switch hitting bat in your lineup, especially nowadays with the platoon swap. It's just something. If he comes up in the lineup in those late situations, I think he would thrive in them. I also have A-Rod starting at shortstop. He's a 3-time MVP, 14-time All-Star, 2 Gold Gloves, 10-time Silver Slugger. Probably the best prospect ever, and probably would have gone down as the greatest player ever had he not, gone through the whole steroid thing and been suspended for 2 seasons. He was just a phenomenal talent, and it was really sad to see that he was also a part of the steroid era and everything. But he's definitely my starting shortstop. I've got the GOAT in left field also, Barry Bonds, 7-time MVP, most of any player ever, 14-time All-Star, 8 Gold Gloves, 12 Silver Sluggers, 2-time batting title, all-time home run career leader. He in one season, I read a stat where he could have struck out in 100 straight plate appearances and still had a higher on-base percentage than the next guy. So, I mean, that's saying something about how good of a hitter he was and how opposing players feared him. I've got Mike Trout starting in center field. He's already a 3-time MVP, 8-time All-Star, 7-time Silver Slugger Award winner. He's got 1 Wilson overall Defensive Player of the Year. And he's on pace to smash a lot of records if he can stay healthy and, keep producing the way he is. And I'm pretty excited to see that. In right field, I've got Babe Ruth. There's not much more you could say about him. He's the all-time career OPS leader at 1.164. He won only 1 MVP in his time, but he was a 2-time All-Star. He won a batting title. He also won an ERA title as a pitcher, which is pretty crazy. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1936, so there's not a whole lot of things that I could say of him not deserving to be in my lineup. And then a designated hitter, I have Ted Williams. A lot of people consider him to be the greatest hitter of all time, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. I think he was really good, and I think he's one of those players that probably would have transitioned okay in today's game. But like Brandon said, with better pitching nowadays, I don't know if he would have put up the same kind of numbers. But he was a 2-time MVP, 2-time Triple Crown, 19-time All-Star, and 6 batting titles. I mean, you can't go wrong with Ted Williams. On my bench, I've got Lou Gehrig. There's not much more to say. I read a book about him when I was like 5, and I wore number 4 every year after that because of it. So even though he died a long time ago, he was still one of the, reading his book, he was a really big influence for me when I was younger. He actually has more MVPs than Ruth did. He won a Triple Crown, a 7-time All-Star, and a batting title. So Lou Gehrig was that Yankees lineup back then was pretty feared. King Griffey Jr. is going to be my other bench outfielder, or one of my bench outfielders. I guess he might be the only bench outfielder I have. MVP, 13-time All-Star, 7 Silver Slugger awards, 10-time Gold Glove winner, Hall of Fame in 2016. Like the kid, you can't really say a whole lot about him other than he definitely deserves to be on the team. I also have Frank Thomas coming off the bench, 2-time MVP, 5-time All-Star, 4 Silver Sluggers, a batting title. Also inducted to the Hall of Fame, the Big Hurt. Yeah, definitely one of the most feared hitters of the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. So I have him on my bench. And then finally, to round it out, I have my backup catcher, Ivan Rodriguez. I mean, he's a 13-time Gold Glover and the 7-time Silver Slugger. Also won an MVP. Like, you can't go wrong with his defense. I think he would complement Piazza really well, especially in big-time games. I could move Piazza to my DH if I need to against the lefty and move Pudge into the starting catcher role and still be fine. So that's going to round out my team.
So, forgot DH. I have Big Papi at DH. I don't think you can pick anyone else, really. Maybe Edgar.
Yeah. So I just picked players that weren't necessarily, like, obviously they didn't have the DH when Ted Williams was there. But I picked players based on their skill level. And then, I mean, you could pretty much throw anybody on our teams in that DH spot and they would have done just fine. So, but I just want to thank you, Brandon, for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm definitely going to look forward to working with more people in the future. If you want to be featured on our podcast, just shoot me a message on Facebook or text me or Snapchat me. Feel free to contact me if you want to be on the show. Maybe send some ideas our way of what we could do next time. But that's going to conclude our podcast for this week. If you haven't already, go ahead and make sure you go down to my YouTube channel and subscribe. I'll leave the the link to my channel as well as my brother's channel on all our social media accounts, and then I will be posting the video either sometime tonight or Thursday morning. But yeah, that'll conclude our podcast. So thanks for both of you for being on here with me, and I hope everyone has a good night.
See you, Junior. Love
See
you.
ya. Love you. Later. See you, Jax.
See it.